The baseball offseason is both the most exciting and most boring in sports. The moments where it's at its peak, it's unbeatable. I mean, for this offseason, the beginning was action-packed. I mean, it had a lot of big stuff. Blake Snell didn't take much time to sign. Juan Soto signing was obviously a big deal. The Willie Adames Giants signing was a day before that. Max Fried signed a week after that. A lot happened. But then things get slow. Then things get dreadfully slow. And then things get to where we are now, where the two biggest free agents left on the market are still out there, and the whole thing is just dragging its feet. Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman, two guys in somewhat similar situations, but also somewhat different situations. They're both Scott Boras clients, so things like this are normal. He likes to wait and then wait until the last minute for a lot of his guys, and sometimes it works, other times it backfires. And in the case of Alex Bregman specifically, he's become easily the most tiresome free agent of the offseason. Really quick, as always, if you're part of the 53% of viewers not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button if you enjoy the videos. As like I said, Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman have similarities, but also vast differences. Like, for example, they're both entering free agency after being on one team their entire career so far. They're both Boras clients, and they're both being dragged into February without new contracts. But the big difference is the positions they play. First base, like I've said in previous videos lately, is a position that's losing its value, or at the very least, teams just don't seem as willing to pay up or give up as much for a first baseman. And Pete Alonso's market hasn't seemed to be that busy this offseason, I think because of that. At least in large part. I'm sure some other teams have checked in, but for the most part, it seems like it's just been between the Mets and the Blue Jays for the longest time. And it's gotten to a point where Pete and Boras themselves have even come up with offers for the Mets to agree with that they haven't agreed with, hence why Steve Cohen openly called their offer insulting, basically, that the structure of the deal just wasn't at all in the Mets' favor and it was too one-sided. But for Alex Bregman, he's a third baseman who can also play shortstop or second base if you really need or want him to, which could be a legitimate option for some teams, especially second base. So his market has been a little bit bigger than Alonso's, but it's just become such a drag. First off, Bregman's a 31-year-old who's been in a decline for a few years now. He's still a productive hitter and overall good player, but it's obvious at this point we're never going to see the Alex Bregman of 2017 through 2019 again, which isn't some groundbreaking take. Everyone knows that, hence why Bregman isn't going to get some generational contract. It'll be good money for sure, but for the player that he is at this stage, I just think the constant reporting of him is getting old. So it started out with the most popular prediction, or the most safe prediction, being that he stays with the Astros and re-signs there. But after they signed Christian Walker and got a third baseman in the Kyle Tucker trade, Isaac Paredes, that was essentially them moving on from Bregman. So in all that time since, at least according to reports, it's been between the Red Sox, Tigers, and Blue Jays, but that's where it gets weird, because even though the Red Sox have been in the conversation for like 2 months now, and a lot of people making them out to be like the favorites, they also haven't like been involved really at all. You'll have people like John Heyman saying the Red Sox are a likely landing spot at times, but you can only take so much of what Heyman says for face value, considering he's a Scott Boras mouthpiece. He basically reports, quote unquote, or says things that could help drive up the price for Boras players. It's pretty known Boras just tells Heyman everything. But when every other source imaginable is constantly putting out the fire of any likelihood of Bregman ending up in Boston, it's just very confusing. Bregman wants 6 years, which is the amount of years Houston offered, but the money isn't what he wants. They offered him $156 million over 6. The Red Sox reportedly don't want to go more than 4 years on a contract, which I think makes total sense. And the Blue Jays and Tigers are the other two teams involved, and based off other reports, the Cubs have also been linked more recently. So it seems as if those are the last 3 teams on planet Earth he'd go to, and he prefers Boston. Boston just doesn't prefer him enough, and he'd love to stay in Houston, but Houston doesn't want to budge on their offer. I find it ridiculous, specifically for Red Sox fans, to be upset and so up in arms that the team doesn't want to sign Bregman that much. Juan Soto to the Red Sox was never going to happen, don't get it wrong. But there was a point where it did seem at least somewhat realistic enough for the thought of the Red Sox missing out on him and settling for Alex Bregman being like disappointing and lame. And now a lot of those same fans are the ones who are acting as if the sky's falling for not getting Bregman, despite the team having a crowded infield right now. Like, Bregman does not fit the team that much. Usually you sign free agents because, you know, it fits the team, not because you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, which is what it would seem for the Red Sox, especially if they overpay or go for more than 4 years. I get Bregman's experience as a winner, being a leader in the Astros clubhouse and all that. That's important, for sure. But you got to factor in the long-term part of this stuff and how it fits each team with the way they're at and how they're built. And I look at it like the same situation with the Blue Jays. They're in a different spot than the Red Sox right now, but I still don't look at that franchise and think, You know what they really need? A 31-year-old regressing hitter for 6 years. Although, regardless of what I think, they feel that's what they can use because that's what they've offered him, a 6-year deal. The Astros and Tigers make the most sense. I'd say the Yankees too. They could use an infielder like Bregman, but I don't think they're even in the conversation of signing him, so that doesn't really matter. They don't have any interest. So, Astros and Tigers. Astros because, obviously, although they already made moves to replace Bregman, so if they did do all that just to bring him back anyway, which is still a slight possibility as they have gone back into communication, there's talk that Jose Altuve would move to left field, which would be weird. It's hard to imagine until you realize you can just go to your local Little League field and watch whoever plays left there. That's what it would be like. Bregman apparently also has at least 2 other 6-year offers, one from the Blue Jays and another from a nameless team that I would assume is the Cubs, that strangely has an opt-out after the first year, but it's from a team that may not be high on his list, so I guess that's why they'd include that 1-year option. And again, I'm guessing that team is the Cubs, but I don't know why we don't know the name of the team. And I said the Tigers are a good fit, but at the same time, they're not, like, at all. It's weird because from a team standpoint, like in a general way of thinking about it, I think the Tigers and Astros would benefit the most in getting a player like Bregman, like with where they're at as teams, how they're built. But from Bregman's standpoint, he would benefit most by signing with the Astros, but also the Red Sox because his numbers are so much better at those parks. Obviously, he's played in Houston his whole career and he uses the Crawford boxes really well in the shorter distance and left, but the dude rakes at Fenway Park, and the Green Monster, of course, helps with that. Detroit, though, is where a lot of hitting goes to die, and Bregman's numbers back that up. His career numbers are really bad at Comerica Park, so Bregman wouldn't benefit as much playing there, but then by that logic, wouldn't the Tigers also get no benefit? Because now they have a player who doesn't hit well in their park where they play half their games. So if anything, Bregman's the winner because he gets his money either way. Look, I'll say this. If it was Juan Soto we were talking about here, I'd care a lot more, and I'd say most would too. But it's Alex Bregman. Again, good player. But these reporters constantly updating us with nothing isn't really interesting. It feels like nothing's moved, and I think that's because nothing has moved. Like, at least with the Mets and Alonso, there's some back and forth with contract situations. You have Cohen coming out talking about it. Like, there's some drama with that. But with Bregman, I mean, his offer from the Astros hasn't changed. That 6-year, $156 million offer has been there since early on in the offseason, and it was never taken off the table. So nothing's changed there. Then you have the Red Sox, who won't budge with the years. That's been the case since day one. That hasn't changed either. The Blue Jays and Tigers seem very willing to do whatever it takes for Bregman, but he doesn't seem to prefer them, and it's been that way for months too. All of it. It's a masterclass of off-season fatigue. Not that Pete Alonso's free agency has been some fascinating process, but I think Bregman has been, at least for me, and I would imagine a lot of you, just getting very old or even way past the point of that. Any talks of him, it's already gotten old. No update matters anymore other than when he signs. And even then, at this point, it's like, all right, spring training, we're almost there. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.